Max Verstappen, who's been on record criticizing the show, saying that they could take an interview and they kind of put stuff wherever they want it to be, with respect to the filmmaking.
For the sake of storytelling.
Yeah. Season 3, I think they kind of made some rivalry out of nothing. Hardcore fans of F1 could really relate and say like, come on, this is BS.
Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode of the Right Now show with Abhinandan and Abhinav. Before we begin today's episode, we hope and pray that all of you are safe, especially the country is going through so much turmoil right now and so many of our brothers and sisters are suffering out there. We hope that it gets better soon, and let us help anyone in any of our capacity possible.
Yes. So I think while we're doing that, we are trying to do our bit by staying at home. So this podcast is being recorded with each of us in our places or in our homes. So yeah, stay at home,
Yes.
stay safe.
As a matter of fact, Abhi and I, we stay in the same apartment. So he's exactly like 5 floors below in the same place where I am recording right now. So
Hey, hi Abhinav,
Yeah.
what's up? Yeah.
hey, nice man.
Yeah.
Are you like looking up? You're looking up to me, huh?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes, I'm looking up to you.
Awesome. Also, today is the 3rd episode of our podcast. The previous episode was on vocation. If you haven't heard it already, then please go and listen to it right now. And for today's episode, we have a very exciting topic, and a topic that is like really close to our hearts. And it is
Drum roll.
Okay, that was terrible.
Oh my
car.
God. Bro, is that a Ferrari? Is that a Mercedes going by? Okay.
Yeah, that was a Red Bull actually. So today's topic is Formula 1 Drive to Survive. So to start off our discussion, our podcast for today actually, the first thing we have is Formula 1 itself. So Formula 1, as most of you might know, is like the pinnacle of motorsports. It's the most technologically advanced, fastest and most followed motorsports, I would say.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's basically car racing with the most advanced cars out there in the world. So in Formula 1, you have a lot of teams, drivers. Abhi, do you want to give like a intro to that?
Yep. So I think, like you mentioned, Formula 1, the sport of Formula 1 has different departments that in really common language, you could say it as different departments, right? But then the face of Formula 1 are really the drivers, right? And the cars and the teams that they're part of. Formula 1 in its current avatar has close to around 10 teams, and it actually has 10 teams, and each team has 2 cars on the grid, which means to say that each team has 2 drivers, 2 cars, and on the grid you have total of 20 cars. So 20 cars in every race compete for the top 3 positions, right? So those are called the podium positions 1, 2 and 3, and that's where it really gets exciting. And anything beyond that, Formula 1 races across the world, across continents, be it in Australia, be it in Europe. Europe is the center of Formula 1, which means to say that majority of the teams are based out of Europe. And
also the drivers, majority of the drivers are from Europe.
Yep. And majority of the races too happen in Europe. But that being said, that they've also raced, and they also continue to race in the calendar, in the year calendar across different continents. It could be the Americas, it could be North and South America, it could also be they also race in Asia. So
yeah, and fun fact, they raced in India for 3 years.
Yep.
11, 12 and 13, and surprisingly all the 3 races were won by one guy, Sebastian Vettel, the reigning champion back then.
By the way, I was there in the India when Indian Grand Prix was happening. I was there.
You were there in the stadium?
No, not in the race. I was just there in India that time.
Oh man.
Okay. Yes. So I think one of the most important things or events that really happened to Formula One was this series called Drive to Survive, that was produced and really bought out on Netflix, and that happened 3 years back. So we have 3 seasons of Drive to Survive until date, and that kind of really helped the sport leap up to what it is today. Right. Exactly. So, and that's what is going to be the topic of this episode. It's on Netflix. We're going to discuss more about that. What's good, what's not. And then probably Abhinav will give you a brief and idea of what and how and where did Drive to Survive really come into existence.
Yeah. So like Abhi said, it started like 3 years ago. So the talks began in actually the second half of 2017 season. And that's when, there is this, basically the Formula One media team reached out to these particular executive producer and directors. And this guy called Paul Martin, who's from this production company called Box to Box Pictures. And they asked him to, they had this idea of what if he could cover the inside lives of Formula One, of the drivers, of the teams, of the strategy that goes on, of the politics that goes on. Because that is something that not everyone is very familiar with. Only the diehard fans will know it because they have the extra urge to go out there and research, etc. So what if we put it out to the world? So that's when the whole idea started. And, they went ahead and covered 2 Grand Prix actually in 2017. And they familiarized themselves with the people in the different teams, the team principals, etc. This was back in 2017. The last 2 Grand Prix. One was the Brazilian and the Abu Dhabi. Yes, the Abu Dhabi one. So that's how it started. And the other executive producer also happens to be the guy who actually produced this movie called Senna, which is based on the life of the great Ayrton Senna, the erstwhile racing driver who is no longer with us, but considered to be the greatest driver ever, arguably. So that's how it all started. And here we are with 3 seasons of really amazing show, actually, to say. And the target audience and the reason of it being starting, actually, like the target audience is basically F1 fans, definitely, because they love to see more of inside what is happening, etc. And the people who haven't heard about F1 much, or like the newer audience, basically, it's a great place to start off following F1. Yep. What do you think, Abhi?
Yep, totally. Because, and I think every sport really goes through this phase where they have to build their fan base, they have to build their viewership, right? And that's how it's going to really build the sport. So I think F1 was at that specific point where they had the hardcore or the diehard F1 fans, right? But then for the sport to really grow, apart from what they really do on the sport, for the viewership, for the fan base to grow, they had to do something. And then I would say that Drive to Survive was more of a masterstroke that they really went on, and the success that it is actually achieved today. So
absolutely, yeah, I think it's like a solid marketing masterstroke, actually, with whole social media and OTT platforms taking the forefront of today's world. Yeah, it's like it's just blasting on people's face. Formula One is here.
Yeah. So yeah. But I think what the good thing was, I happened to view Formula One by chance. So like every other person, I was on Netflix. I was just browsing through half an hour, 40 minutes, and not really knowing what to watch. But then I saw something on this, which is Drive to Survive. I've not been a racing fan before. It's something I don't even know about Formula One. Obviously, I heard the name Michael Schumacher on the news.
You used to call it Shoemaker, no, before?
Yeah. But then once I became a fan of Formula One, Then I really got to know it was Michael Schumacher, and that's when I got it right. Yeah, but then I think I just happened to see this documentary by chance, saw the first episode, and that's something that really excites you. So I think what's important is how the first episode is really presented, or the pilot episode is presented, right? So if that kind of takes off, right, and then obviously you're going to watch the next few episodes. And nevertheless, I think it was just 2 days, a day or two, and I kind of binged watched how much ever I could, and then in a day or two it was all done. So there I was, the Formula One fan in me was born that very day.
I think this happened to you after the first season came out, right? That is just in the beginning of 2019.
Yep. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I think it was,
And the same thing happened to me like 1 year later, before season 2 came. So for me, actually, like I used to follow little bit of racing. So I knew the likes of Kimi Raikkonen, Juan Pablo Montoya, and then Jenson Button, and obviously Michael Schumacher and Alonso. So we used to follow that back in the day when we were in like 9th, 10th standard kids. We used to just see who won the race and who's winning the constructors championship, etc. But as a 9th, 10th standard kid, I did not understand the strategy part of things. I did not understand DRS, and I don't know if DRS was there back then also. And so many other technical details, etc. So that didn't happen. And once this Drive to Survive came, I remember you only was like, you sat me down. We were editing some different stuff, and you just sat me down and you're like, hey, let's watch this.
And like all shows that I do to you, I kind of really forced you to watch this.
Yeah,
like,
when it
bros,
comes
watch,
to like watching content that he has watched, this guy Abhinandan is a fucking pain in the ass. He'll make sure that you see it, like he'll put a tape on your eyelids and he'll lift your head like, hey, watch it, man. You did the same thing for even Michael Jordan's documentary also. Like,
Last Dance.
Yeah, but surprisingly, like his recommendations are good. So I don't hold that against you, but
Yes.
you're a pain.
Yes.
So that's how like I got interested, and there is this opening sequence in the first episode itself, and it comes like later also. It's almost the intro where the car is just stopping at the pit lane, and it's a series of some 10 jump cuts, cut, where they show all the teams, like at the same position, at the same pit lane. I don't know if you were able to picturize it, but that shot and that edit is something that will give you goosebumps. You're like, wow, this is like filmmaking in next level.
Yeah. And I think one thing, like how you remember, right, that scene, for me, one scene that really stood out and that kind of captured my imagination or my viewership was that scene when they explain what F1 drivers are. I think they go on to say that F1 drivers are more like warriors. I mean, something of that sort, wherein they have a fighter mentality, right? And then you see all of the shot of all of the F1 drivers really working out in the gym, putting in all those hours, right? And then that kind of told me that, look, okay, maybe this is something that is bigger than what I'm really thinking, just more than simply car racing, right? It's something more than that. Yeah.
And I think that brings us to the major point that most people think that F1 is okay, fine, it's car race, but they don't understand that it is a sport. It is not something time pass, and it requires immense physical endurance, stamina, strength. I think Formula One drivers' necks are like the strongest in compared to any other sport. So I don't know about shot put athletics and all, but definitely crazy strong necks.
Yep. And I think the reason for that is that the amount of G-force that is really put on that neck, because I think when you're driving, right, so there's a lot of G-force that is really applied on your body, and then I think to really hold that on, your neck and your head should be really strong, right? So they don't have windshields like how we have in our cars, so that force is directly on your body. So yeah.
Yeah, so that is about how we started watching the show, and the show itself it's very fascinating kind of show.
Yep.
So Abhi, like coming to like who are your favorite drivers in Formula One?
See, my favorite driver was and is Daniel Ricciardo. So, and I think something that really caught my imagination or my liking for him was the first season, right? So he's a very chilled out guy. And for people who
Super
watched
chilled out.
Drive to Survive, he's a very chilled out guy. Off camera, right? But on camera, he's has a tunnel vision. So he's really focused on what he wants. He's ruthless on the track, on the
Is tunnel
Formula 1
vision
track.
is tunnel vision the right phrase here?
Yeah. I mean, his focus is really
Tunnel vision is generally used in little negative sense, no?
Yeah, but I think in a positive sense, he has that vision that, okay, look, I want to be a future world champion, right? So I think
Okay, I forgive you for that usage, but
Thank
yeah,
you,
I get
thank
it.
you, thank you, master. Yeah.
Yeah, that guy is like, I think nobody can not like Daniel Ricciardo. He's that fun and very charismatic personality, and obviously he's almost like everyone's favorite. But yeah, so that was about your favorite driver. I think my
who's
favorite
yours?
driver, I'm a little confused, but I would go with
Let me
like
guess.
I-
Let me guess.
yeah, sure.
Put my hat on. I already have my hat on. So I think Sebastian Vettel. Oh, or Max Verstappen.
No, I like Max, but not Max. I think there is like so many levels in. Yeah, I think Vettel is top there, but I would still kind of prefer Leclerc, Charles Leclerc, the Ferrari future.
Oh,
That guy is
okay.
like, he's basically
nice
Max
time.
Verstappen, who's a little more smiling and
Yeah. He's a kinder version of
doesn't
Verstappen.
show
at least.
aggression. Yeah, kinder version.
Yeah, or a media friendly or a camera friendly version of Verstappen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Crazy. Yeah. But I think if you
But I'm
if you look
definitely a
at-
Ferrari fan.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
you're the part of the Tifosi. So Tifosi is actually
Tifosi.
is the Italian. The fans of Ferraris, they're called Tifosi. So you're
Yeah.
part of the Tifosi.
I think not just Italian, right? Like people around the world who are
Yeah.
Ferrari fans, basically.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you're part of the Ferrari fan
Yep.
club.
Yeah, Ferrari. Ferrari is like the Manchester United of Formula One. And like LA Lakers of Formula One. What about your favorite team? Let me guess. Your favorite team is, I want to say Haas, but I know it's Red Bull. It's Red Bull, no?
No. Now it's McLaren. See, obviously you route for the underdog, right? So
Yeah.
for people who are listening to this podcast, right? So Formula One as such, at least in the past few years, has been majorly dominated. By dominated, I mean that majority of the races have been won either by one Mercedes or two Red Bull. Ferrari, I think until the last two, barring the last two seasons, Ferrari also, right? So, and I think that's kind of how it has really played out in the past few years, right? And I think that's something that's also covered with respect to Drive to Survive. These guys majorly have their eyes on them, right? But then what people really look out for, because anyone who's watching a series or really routing for a sport, right? Unless until you're a hardcore fan of the team, right? For example, say Mercedes or say Red Bull, right? Everyone wants certain kind of action, and I think that action really happens in the midfield, right? And by midfield, what we mean by midfield is of the 10 teams, top 3 teams, like we mentioned, are Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull. That's a general perception, right? But in all of the races, the next, barring the last 2 teams, all of the other teams have a really close and a fierce competition amongst them. So I think that's something that's really exciting about the Formula One. I think that part is really nicely covered by Drive to Survive series, right?
Absolutely. Like the midfield battle that happens, uh, you know, especially I think this year it is pretty exciting, especially between McLaren and Ferrari. Uh, and which are the other two? Obviously, like the top two teams are also like fighting it out, like Mercedes and Red Bull this year. So that's also like pretty good.
Renault.
Yeah, Renault. Now it's called Alpine team, but yeah, it's pretty exciting as such. So yeah, like Abhi said that Mercedes has been dominating Formula One for like last 10 years. Winning almost 8 constructor championships, and overall as a sports, if you look at it, Ferrari is the team that's like the legacy team that has won like 16 championships, and it's like synonymous to Formula One. So yeah, so that's about Formula One, and basically Drive to Survive is trying its best to bring out the inner stories, the drama, the politics, the fights, the excitement, the celebration, the stuff that happens inside lives of the drivers, etc., the team principles.
Yep. By the way, I have an interesting word for that. Okay, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Can Drive to Survive be called the Big Boss of Formula One? I mean, the Big Boss reality show, because it kind of has all this controversies and they focus on that, right? So, can it be called something like that?
It can be called, but let's not associate Formula One with cringe.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But it's essentially that. It's, they're trying to cover as much as possible. Now, coming to the most interesting part of Drive to Survive are the pros and cons of it. So I think we have covered like a few pros, but let's just go through it again so that we have not missed out any point. So do you want me to start, Abhi, or do you want to start?
Yeah, you can start.
Cool. So for the first pro of the show is that this is a show catering to a major audience. It is not specifically just for F1 fans out there, but if someone is watching the show for the first time, who is even remotely interested in sports, I think they can definitely watch it. But yeah, and I believe that audience is still so much, like that's a huge audience, people who are interested in sports and sports documentaries, especially that is being told in such a way. So basically F1 fans and also newbies. Yeah. The second point is it is a great piece of filmmaking.
Yeah, I agree with
amazing.
You. Yeah, that's amazing. Correct. Totally.
Right? Like the cinematography, the editing. Oh man, like amazing. A lot of things, especially, when the race is starting and they're trying to build that rivalry of two drivers till then.
Yeah.
And when the race is starting, they show, basically the showdown happens in the race. So just before the race, they show those two drivers and what's going on and the kind of silence that is there before the race. And it's like silence before the stop.
Yep. And when the light goes off, right? And it's that moment, like when it's like, tum.
It's lights out and away we go.
Tum. There's 5 blinks and then it's...
Yeah. The 5 blinks and the silence. Man,
amazing. That's something that actually really pumps you up, right? And then until then you're also like, oh God, let the race start, let the race begin. Right. And then,
if you're like watching the normal race, it looks like normal. Yeah, exciting. But the way these people have obviously built in the whole, filmmaking elements of sound design and the edit itself just makes it sound brilliant.
Yep, totally. I agree with you on that one.
And of course, it's a brilliant sports documentary, one of the best out there right now, I would say. And when it comes to motorsports, I think like this is the greatest documentary that has been there till now.
Yeah, and I think the sheer impact of it, right? And when we're talking about greatness, right? How has it really helped the sport achieve, in the first case, its objective of increasing its viewership, right? And when I kind of did some reading, right, I was really astonished because apart from what has already been discussed in the media, right? That is, it's a very successful piece of filmmaking or a documentary, right? But then they say that the social media engagements related to Formula One is increased close to around 99%. That's close to around 100% jump in this, right? And then this year's Bahrain GP or the Bahrain Grand Prix was the most viewed US race ever. So, I mean, that's a huge market because, see, I think to be very specific, Netflix has a huge chunk of subscribers in the US, right? So, and US by itself is a huge country, and it's an attractive destination for Formula One to really break in or break out from Europe and then break into US, right? So from a revenue perspective, obviously that's a great plus point, right? And then they say that over 75% of F1's new audience growth, right, in 2020 alone is between the ages of 16 and 35. So, I mean, they've got all the check boxes ticked, right? So you have a young audience that is really hooked onto the sport, and then that audience you could really convert it with respect to revenue in terms of, say, merchandise or, say, different experiences. That's something that they could really bank on. And I think the pandemic itself has kind of helped F1, I would say, because I think what happened was the races were cancelled, and that's what the season 3 is really based on. So of the 3 seasons, right? So Corona affecting, the races are cancelled. What happened was everything moved on to a virtual format, right? Wherein people started streaming their races online, right? Could be on YouTube, could be on Twitch. So they say that Lando Norris, who's one of the youngest F1 drivers, right? So he's, I think, around 20 years old. His Twitch streaming had a growth of 50%, right? So, and that's a huge, when we're talking about lakhs of viewers, right? A 50% is a huge increase, right? And the sport or the documentary has really helped the sport achieve, and then it has also helped the sport widen its reach with respect to viewership, with respect to fan base, with respect to new revenue streams. So I mean that's the biggest pro that they could kind of pull off, right? And then I'm sure people who've made the documentary and would be hugely proud of that, and then that really tells you how amazing the documentary was, right? So
it is, and especially because it is something that has a definite ending, and it is so non-fictional, basically. Like, you like sometimes you just know what has happened, so that makes it kind of much more exciting. There is no extra masala, and there is no scope for all that extra creative liberties, etc. So making the existing story interesting and bringing in the inside information, etc., is like really fun. And I've seen like Formula One base grow like crazy, like the Instagram, the YouTube, and like you said, Lando's, even Charles Leclerc, Albon, and so many other Formula Ones, they have this Twitch stream that is going on, and they were doing this virtual GPs and all in the off season, which I think like gave them a huge boost altogether, along with Drive to Survive, obviously.
Yeah, but I think as you mentioned, right, all the drama and all of that, and that's where I think we start kind of realizing, and that's where the criticism really starts to come in.
Yes,
right? And that's the fine
where
line.
We come to the cons of the show.
Yeah. I think the whole thing, there's a huge set of audience, right, which believe that they've taken it too far with respect to the creative liberties, and it's not only a few set of audience, it's not only a few set of fans, right? But it's also certain drivers, like say Max Verstappen, who's been on record saying, criticizing the show, saying that they kind of put, they could take your interview and they kind of put stuff wherever they want it to be with respect to the filmmaking.
For the sake of storytelling.
For the sake of storytelling, yeah. So I think that was one, and I think one of the huge examples in season 3, right? Season 1 and 2 were okay, fair enough, but then season 3, they kind of faced flack right? So there's a team, McLaren, which is part of Formula One. Their two drivers, Carlos Sainz and Lando Norris, had a beautiful chemistry between them. So for people who don't know, it's very hard for drivers to really have chemistry, because ideally they would be racing against each other, right? Obviously, and also the whole
and especially because like they both have the same car, so they want to show that I am better than the other guy, because it's not just about the racing and pride of it, but also about, you know, like your job is on risk if you are the second best driver out of the two. So there's always a rivalry that happens between drivers.
Yep. And I think specifically for McLaren, they had a real bromance, I think, and Netflix for some reason.
I think the whole McLaren team is like super wholesome, dude. Like
totally,
I don't know. Like I would say this after Alonso left.
Yeah.
Like once Carlos Sainz came in and Lando Norris came in.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's like amazing.
Yeah.
And now that Danny Rick is there instead of
Carlos Sainz, who's moved to Ferrari.
That's kind of maintained the whole wholesome vibe of McLaren and the bromance that happens between drivers. But what happened in Drive to Survive?
Season 3, I think they kind of made some rivalry out of nothing, right? And hardcore fans of F1 could really relate and say, like, come on, this is BS, right? This doesn't really happen, right? And I think generally if you go back and see, right, a lot of it is really pumped up a little extra, because I remember even the way Daniel Ricciardo and Verstappen, that incident, right, where they crashed into each other,
yes.
right? It was made that, okay, of course they're rivals on the track, but then off track they're obviously very good friends, right? So I think that's something that's not seen, but fair enough, points to storytelling. But I think once you become a fan of F1, right, you can kind of catch those things.
Exactly. And that brings me to the point, actually. After seeing the first 2 seasons last year, I was actually like, I fell flat for it, and that's when I started following Formula One.
But after you falling flat, did you get up?
No, dude, I'm still flat.
Fine. Yeah.
So the thing is, no, after basically, you know, like following the season, the whole 2020 season actually, and then when I saw Drive to Survive season 3, and that's when, you know, like so many factors kicked in, and I was like, okay, one thing is the filmmaking is becoming a little bit monotonous, like the same, you know, the lights out and here we go, the part where the race is starting, the edit is pretty similar for every time, and, you know, it has become like a template. So that monotony was there, and, you know, trying to create rivalries and unnecessary you know, show of negativity and adding masala and inaccuracies. The worst part is that there was this clash between Lando and Carlos somewhere in one of the GPs, and they changed Lando's radio communication within the helmet to something else, something aggressive, and that was not happening. Only like people, like hardcore F1 fans who have like watched the show, watched the highlights, watched the smaller clips on repeat on its social media, they're like, what are you talking about, dude? Like that didn't happen. And simply, like, you know, it's a freaking bromance they were having, like, you know, like the best that you can think of drivers. Obviously they are rivals, but come on, man, like totally. This is too much.
Totally agree.
Like, had they done to some other team, no, maybe like fans would have forgiven, but they did that to McLaren out of all. Like, that was stupid. You shouldn't do that.
I think it's across, not only to McLaren, there's also a point of equal coverage not being given to all the teams, right? So, and especially for the teams which are the last 2 teams, which is Haas, you could say Haas and Williams, right? There's nothing much really happening. The last 2 teams are fighting each other, and I think that's what they do. But then I think generally there was not really enough coverage being given to the last 2 teams, one, and then generally all drivers in general, right? For example, George Russell, who's a Mercedes Academy driver driving for Williams team, right? I think he doesn't hardly features in the series, right? So that's also one of the things I could kind of say is a minus for Drive to Survive.
It is. Yeah, actually, like last season, like there were so many highlight points that they just missed. The whole, like George Russell driving a Mercedes when Hamilton got COVID, and he almost won that GP. Like showing the Mercedes power itself.
Yeah. That could have made for a great
and the
story.
Turkish Grand Prix.
That could have made for a great story.
It would. And the whole Turkish Grand Prix was, it was not there only, where Sebastian Vettel, who, in spite of having like a very poor season, came back and won a podium. And it was a great race in the rain, but it wasn't covered, unfortunately. So yeah, those are the few
pluses and minuses.
Of the whole show. But what do you think? Like, what is your final verdict, Abhi?
Yeah. Before the final verdict, I would ask you, what if you could pick one moment of all the 3 seasons that you've seen? One moment that kind of just stood out for you.
Okay, so I have like one like heroic kind of moment which I remember, and one like funniest moment. So the heroic moment that really stands out for me is Charles Leclerc's Monza win in 2019, where
totally
just a month ago he and the Formula One world lost a great F2 driver, Antoine Hubert, in Spa, Belgium. And like Charles went on to win Monza, and the kind of redemption he had at Monza, the whole Tifosi celebrating, that was one thing. Obviously Gasly is also like Gasly's return.
You took off. I was about to say that was my heroic moment, especially the way he was beaten down, right? He was demoted from the Red Bull team to their sister team, which is AlphaTauri. Right, in middle of the season he was demoted, not like after the season or before the season, and to come back and win in Monza, the Italian Grand Prix, that too first.
Yeah, Monza last year, and also the previous year end Brazil when he won. That was like, what a moment! Like very underestimated driver, man, Pierre Gasly. So that was one amazing, and my favorite funny moment was when Romain Grosjean was like, there was this safety car incident where basically some accident happened in one of the circuits, and the drivers are supposed to maintain speed limit, and this guy was like driving. This guy was driving behind a safety car under like certain speed, so all were like in controlled speed, and this guy went and crashed in safety car.
And I think he blamed someone else for it or something, right? No, he didn't blame. Oh, that was different.
No, he didn't blame. And the reaction that harsh, team principal Gunther had is like, unbelievable. What the fuck happened? That was like amazing.
Yeah.
So,
but for me, one more unbelievable moment was in season 3 when Valtteri Bottas showed his butt. And I think that became...
more like bot ass.
Yeah, he became butt ass that time. Whoa, it's the same thing, butt ass. Yeah,
that was totally unnecessary.
Yeah, it was unnecessary, I think. But I think in from the place he's right. I think he's from Netherlands. No, Finland.
No, he's from Finland.
I think that's a common thing for them. So they like how we chill here together, friends in cafes. They chill there together, aram se in sauna. So
see them doing that is might be a common thing, but that making it to the documentary was
Netflix presenting
not required.
Netflix presenting his butt in a way for us to see. That I think was a very funny moment.
Yeah. Again, creative liberty that Netflix takes. So yeah.
What's your verdict?
Coming to the overall verdict of it. I would say that although it has some drawbacks, like the creative liberties, the extra masala they add, making the plain rice into biryani.
Yep.
I think all in all, this is a great show to have actually.
Yeah, man.
Like for fans and for non-fans, like it's just more fun content of Formula One, and it's so well polished. So a world without Drive to Survive wouldn't have been as much fun.
Yep.
So
It would have, it would have just been plain. Probably you and me would have never spoken about it, right?
Yes.
Today.
Yeah.
So I think, that's.
We would have had one less amazing podcast like this.
Yeah. True. With that being said, I think we have a race today. So.
Oh yeah, we have a race today, and it's
I think.
it's Portimao, Portugal GP 2021.
Yeah.
So that's why we wanted to wrap up pretty fast. And that's about Drive to Survive. So people who haven't watched Drive to Survive and who haven't even watched Formula One, actually, you guys should go and watch the series. It's beautiful. It's amazing.
Totally, man. Totally.
Formula One hardcore fans who haven't watched, up to you. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe.
Yeah, and if you watch Formula One, if you want more documentaries to watch or movies to watch, right? There's a very, very popular Hollywood movie called Rush, which is on the lives of two amazing Formula One
drivers of the 70s. Yes.
That is one.
Niki Lauda and James Hunt.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's one. Senna. The documentary's name is called Senna. It's about Ayrton Senna. So that's an amazing documentary to watch. Yeah.
Absolutely. Also, there's a documentary on Amazon Prime. It's about McLaren team itself. So I think it's a 3-4 episode series.
Is it good?
That I haven't watched yet.
Oh, okay.
I haven't watched it yet, but the ratings are fine.
Okay, fine. That's on my list. Yep. So I think while there's a race that's coming, and I think we have to rush, we have to watch the race, right? While we watch that race, and then once you hear the podcast, do share with us what you feel about the podcast. Do share your suggestions, right, about the podcast. What would you like to hear? You could obviously write to us and then let us know what are the topics that interest you. But I think meanwhile, instead of and meanwhile when you're doing all of this, the simple thing that you could really do is to help us by sharing, liking, and subscribing to this content. So we can offer you more stuff, and I think that's something that you would like. Signing off today with a Zoom. This is Abhinandan here, and up 5 floors above me is Abhinav. So, tada!
Take care, guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Stay safe.
Yep.
Bye.